And for more on the government shutdown and the other political headlines of the week, let's bring in Democratic strategist and former senior advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris, Mike Nellis, and Republican strategist and former GOP Senate candidate Alex Zdan. Great to see you, gentlemen. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Alex, I'll start with you. I want to start with a poll from the Washington Post. Nearly half of Americans blame President Trump and Republicans for the shutdown. 30% blame Democrats. It does seem Republicans are losing the narrative when it comes to the shutdown. There's the poll. Your thoughts?
You show me one poll, I've seen one poll. There are other polls that say 65% of the public blame the Democrats for the shutdown. Here's the reality. Chuck Schumer can end this shutdown on Monday. Chuck Schumer can have himself and a handful of Democrats vote to reopen the government on a clean CR, a clean continuing resolution, get us through Thanksgiving, during which time Republicans, as Senator Thune has said, are perfectly happy to negotiate with Democrats over Affordable Care Act subsidies. It's really that simple. And I think the American people are going to see that for what it is.
Let me stick with you, Alex, because we do have another poll. It shows that the health care subsidies are a winning issue for Americans. And I'm going to ask you, why are congressional Republicans so against extending them?
We're not against extending them necessarily. What Republicans are against are being held hostage by Democrats, which is exactly what is going on. Shutdown politics are not good for the country. Shutdown politics weren't good when Republicans did it. Shutdown politics are not good when Democrats do it. Shutdown politics are not the right way. We haven't had a full budget in this country since 1969. I think that one of the things that should come out of this is that both sides need to come to the table and negotiate a full budget, multi-year planning for the federal government like a lot of states do, and that's something that could be a silver lining here. But for right now, Chuck Schumer can end this. He should end this, and that would be a win for the American people.
I do want to add there are a few polls, not just one, that is blaming Republicans. I do want to say that. Mike, one of the biggest sticking points of the shutdown, of course, is the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies. Alex just mentioned that as well. Democrats say they want to extend. But I spoke to Dakota Republican Congressman Dusty Johnson, and this is what he said. And I'll talk to you on the other side.
I probably talked to 30 of my Democratic colleagues, and almost every single person I talk to acknowledges that COVID-era subsidies for people making 600% or 700% of poverty, a family of four making $250,000, probably doesn't make sense.
What are you hearing from Democratic lawmakers, Alex?
Well, I chuckle every time I hear a politician be like, I talked to a couple dozen of my colleagues, but they can't name one of them. I think usually those stories are made up. But let's talk about this. I don't envy the job that Alex has to do right now to defend the Republican Party. They're saying that they're willing to negotiate now after the shutdown, but where have they been over the last several months when Democrats have been wanting to work with them to extend these subsidies, work with them to reverse some of the worst cuts in the Trump budget that they passed a few months ago? Democrats have been trying to meet them where they are. Donald Trump blew off Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to go to the Ryder Cup. Republicans aren't even in Washington right now. Speaker Johnson has the House on recess. What Democrats are doing right now is fighting to make sure that your health insurance premiums don't get doubled or tripled with these subsidies going away. Look at the polling. Polling shows it's massively popular. It would be a huge win for Donald Trump and the Republicans to embrace this, but they won't do it. And they're acting like there's a gun to their heads, but there's not. They didn't negotiate when there wasn't a shutdown. Now they're not negotiating again. It's not functioning government. And what's Donald Trump, the art of the deal guy, doing right now? He's golfing all weekend. He's not bringing people together. He's not trying to end the shutdown. There's zero urgency from the Republicans to make a difference to improve your life. And that's a shame, because this is going to hurt a lot of people at a time when everything's already so expensive because of the tariffs.
I'm going to pivot a bit to our top story this morning. President Trump will be federalizing 300 National Guard troops to Chicago. Alex, this has played out over the past few weeks. I think you and I have even talked about it. Pritzker versus Trump. Why not work with the state and city leaders as opposed to just bringing in troops?
Let's not deal with personalities here. Let's deal with the fact that if you're an individual, like you saw in your report, who is going to a law enforcement facility with nails sticking through something you're calling a shield, you're not there to peacefully protest. That's what this is about. This is about law and order versus people who are there to perpetuate violence and provoke violence. Our law enforcement officers need to be assured of their safety. And in fact, if you are swarming in front of a federal detention facility where cars are coming in and out, these protesters are putting themselves in danger. Law and order needs to be restored. That's the number one thing here. This is not about Pritzker versus Trump. This is about law versus disorder.
Mike, weigh in here.
I agree that this isn't about Pritzker versus Trump, but I have a question of who's going to protect the people of Chicago and the people of this country from the ICE agents that are terrorizing the city. I live in the city of Chicago right now. People are absolutely terrified. There are amassed unidentified ICE agents in unidentified cars driving throughout the city, grabbing people off the streets. They took a Black Hawk helicopter and they rappelled down an apartment building, ransacked the entire place, handcuffed everybody, including kids, and then looked at their immigration papers later. They're not going after people who are here violently, who are being violent. They're going after all kinds of people based on their skin color, and that isn't right. And look, there are real problems in this country on immigration. So we should secure our border. We should remove people who are violent. But this situation is out of control. And there are a ton of peaceful protesters at the Broadview facility right now. Now they're calling in the National Guard, which the people of Chicago do not want. This needs to end because the situation here is a powder keg and it's only going to get worse.
We're going to head overseas now. Alex, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, they're in the Middle East. They're hoping to help with these ceasefire negotiations. President Trump spoke to Axios last night. He seems to think he can get Netanyahu to agree to the deal, telling Axios this: he's got to be fine with it. He has no choice. With me, you got to be fine, end quote. If Trump is indeed able to get Netanyahu there, and there seems to be more optimism than I've seen in the past when it comes to these issues, when it comes to our lawmakers, Hamas has still not agreed to all 21 points of the ceasefire deal. What are you hearing in terms of the negotiations, at least at this point?
Well, obviously, Hamas are a gang of murderers and thugs, so you've got to take everything that they say with a great deal of skepticism. The initial reports are promising. I also will point out that President Trump is the only person on the planet who can bring both sides to the table. President Trump has a degree of rapport and perhaps even leverage over Prime Minister Netanyahu that no American president in Netanyahu's time in office has had. This is a very strong opportunity for the president with his envoys to act and stop the killing in the Middle East. Any development here is progress. I think that the diplomat you had on earlier said that this is probably the best possible deal, and let's all pray it goes through.
Yeah, that was Elon Pincus, and to that point, I've never seen him this positive about a deal before either, and he's been on the show several times. Mike, back to you. Trump is trying to do what most Americans have tried and failed for many years. You have been in the room for foreign diplomacy strategy sessions. What would it take to get where President Trump has gotten now?
I mean, it's going to take people moving beyond a lot of longstanding grudges and affronts that they've put against each other, and this is a difficult situation. I hope that they're able to bring the hostages home. I hope that they're able to end this. The phrase that comes to mind right now is just blessed be the peacemakers at the moment. And regardless of party politics, I hope they can figure this out with a deal. I'm really skeptical, though, because this feels like the third or fourth time that we've been really close to a deal like this. And then Hamas has backed out for the last minute, or Netanyahu agrees to a ceasefire and then immediately breaks the ceasefire. So I'm skeptical that this is going to come through. And however you feel about Donald Trump, the guy has a tendency to oversell and underdeliver on things like this. So I'm just a little bit skeptical, but I hope they can figure something out.
Mike Nellis, Alex Zdan, I really appreciate both of you together. Thank you for coming on, guys.